Welcome to Flying Solo by Ralph Fletcher. Well, the last time we were together, we were party to the kids running their own show, doing a little writing, going to music class, and now it's time for Connections, 11:30. That's another writing time, I believe. So let's see what's going on here. Bastian couldn't write. He sat staring out at the window at a huge billowing cloud rushing against the blue sky. He was trying hard not to worry about Barkley, about the quarantine, but he couldn't help it. More than anything, he wanted to be home with his puppy. Barkley will be okay, Mom had said before he left for school. Every day, thousands of dogs fly in airplanes all over the world. He'll be all right. It wasn't the flight that worried Bastian. True, the puppy would be alone, flying by himself in the cargo hold of some jet, but he would probably sleep through most of the night. It was the next part that Bastian hated to think about. In Honolulu, the puppy would be taken to a special place for quarantined animals. Bastian pictured some kind of animal jail, cages, iron bars. Bastian got up, walked to the bookcase, pulled out the fat dictionary, and turned to the cues. He found it on page 1474. Quarantine. A place where persons, animals, or plants having contagious diseases are kept in isolation to prevent the diseases from spreading. He slammed the book shut. Contagious diseases? It was stupid and cruel to quarantine a perfectly healthy puppy for 4 months for absolutely no reason. He opened the thesaurus and thumbed through it until he found it. Quarantine. Verb. Synonyms: separate, hospitalized, keep apart, isolate. Sean's stomach felt a little better now. He loved this time of day, morning when the room began to warm up. Late today it was cloudy, the skies threatening rain, but on some days, just before lunch, a shaft of sunlight reached into the back of the class and put him in its spotlight. It was so peaceful to sit quietly wrapped in that bright, warm cocoon. Sean closed his eyes. The image of Darlene entered his mind. She was much younger than his mother, with blonde hair and a pretty smile. Dad worked the 3 to 11 shift as a security guard at a computer factory. Most nights he stopped at the bar on the way home, so he barely got home until way after midnight. Darlene was usually in the apartment reading magazines or watching TV when Sean came home from school. Some days she ignored him. Some days she tried to boss him around. Other days she made him feel kind of funny. The way she followed him through the house asking, "You got any girls at school that are sweet on you? Sean glanced over at Rachel. She was still writing. Sean picked up his pen and started to write. He wrote fast, his face close to the paper. She never talks, but I wonder if maybe sometimes she closes her door tight and hums a little, or whistles a little tune. Or maybe late at night when everybody's sleeping, she lets out a couple of words real soft just to see if she can still do it. I wonder if it's at all scratchy and creaky. I bought an old fishing reel for $2 off Dad's friend Roger, and it was so rusty me and Dad had to oil it up with about a gallon of WD-40 until the crank turned nice and smooth. Last month, me and Dad found 3 baby kittens that were trapped in a trash can. Dad said he didn't know how they got there, but somebody sealed the lid real tight, and I heard them when I walked by and pulled off the lid. A white one and 2 mixed, and no mother around, and crying like the end of the world. We gave them some milk, and then I held them in my lap. They kept crying and licking me, and their tongues were like sandpaper. It took a long time to get them calmed down. Darlene's allergic to cats, so we had to give the kittens away. We found good homes for all of them, but I wish we could have kept one. We better stop if we're going to share any of these. The kids blinked and looked up from their desk. The voice had come from Karen. Yes, Mrs. Fabiano, Bastian said in a high voice. Come on, Karen said, ignoring him and leading the way to the back of the room. The other kids got up and found seats in the share area. Share time in Mr. Fabiano's class was always the same. Kids took turns reading their writing, moving clockwise from Mr. Fab, who always sat by the corner of the bookcase. Today, that spot was held by Tim. Tim? Karen asked. No way, Tim said. I'm not reading today. I'm on strike. Robert? What the heck? Robert said. I'll go. He cleared his throat, pounded on his chest, and read. I've been thinking about how we don't have any teacher today. I remember this science fiction movie I saw one time when John slept over, and there were these aliens who were using humans in this town for an experiment. The aliens had planted these tiny computers in the humans' brains, only the humans had no idea they were being controlled from outer space. That's like today. Everybody's acting like we're getting away with something by being totally free. Well, I disagree. I would not be surprised if today is like an experiment for how kids would act without any teacher. Mr. Fab left us a note, but I don't totally trust him. I don't totally trust any grown-ups. Robert stopped. Is that finished? Missy asked. That's all I got, he said, putting down his paper. Why would Mr. Fab do an experiment on us? Tim wanted to know. Do you have, like, a theory? Maybe it's not Mr. Fab, Robert said, shrugging. Maybe it's Mr. Peacock. Maybe he's trying to show kids can't control themselves, so they can make more rules in the school. I seriously doubt that, Karen said. But anyway, we can prove him wrong. We are proving him wrong. Christopher? Yes, I shall read my masterpiece, Christopher declared proudly. You will now hear the legend of Sir Francis Brave Fart. Brave Heart? Robert asked. No, Brave Fart, Christopher said, and started reading. On the night before the great battle, Sir Francis Brave Fart came to dinner with a legion of other fearless knights. As he sat down on a chair, he suddenly farted, and the chair exploded in a cloud of foul smoke. The boys cracked up. You moron, Jasmine said. Opinion, Christopher giggled. He read. The other knights were stunned and excited. They had finally found a secret new weapon that might work in their bloody war against the all-powerful Dark Knight. That's all I have so far, Christopher said. Stay tuned for the next adventure of Sir Francis Bravefart. That would make a great movie, Tim said. I'd go see it. I wouldn't, Rhonda said. Jessica, Karen said, you're next. Okay, Jessica said, but you guys won't like it. She read, I read about these parents who left their kids alone in the house for almost a week while they went on vacation. The kids were both under 10 years old. The parents got arrested when they came home. What did they expect? Another time, 2 brothers were home alone. They went into their father's bedroom to look at their father's gun. The gun cabinet was unlocked. The gun was loaded. Stories like this are so predictable. How can anybody be shocked when the gun went off and killed one of the kids? That is what is happening today in this room. We're playing with a loaded gun. Someone could bring a lawsuit against the school for what is happening in this class today. I know this because my father is a lawyer. A good lawyer would argue that the school was negligent by leaving us alone and unsupervised, not just for a few minutes, but for the whole school day. How could any jury possibly disagree? We are not equipped to deal with running our own class. Doing math or writing is no big deal. But what if a fight starts? What if someone has an epileptic seizure? What if someone farts? Christopher interrupted her. Kindly shut up, Rhonda told him. Yeah, nobody interrupted you, Karen told him. She looked at Jessica and nodded. Go on. That's about it, she said, glaring at Christopher. You end all of your paragraphs with questions, Robert said. He leaned over and pointed at her paper. Ever notice that? Jessica said, looking down. Could your father sue us? Corey asked. I doubt it, Jessica said. We're all minors. Fact, Christopher put in. We have time for a couple of more, Karen said. Missy? She said, clutching her paper against her. Missy never shared anything. Okay, Rachel? Rachel handed her paper to Missy. Missy cleared her voice and began to read. I was thinking about when we read Hatchet by Gary Paulson at the beginning of the year. Brian is flying on a bush plane to visit his father in Canada, but the pilot has a heart attack and Brian has to take over the controls. He learns to crash land the plane and survives the wreck. After that, he has to learn to survive in the wilderness. It's sort of like what's happening today. True, nobody had a heart attack around here, and it's true that we are not in the Canadian wilderness, but we're trying to see if we can survive on our own without any grown-ups. I halfway think we're doing the right thing, but I halfway think Jessica's right. It is dangerous. Anything could happen. The first sensible words I've heard all day, Jessica said, smiling at Rachel, other than mine, of course. Hatchet was cool, Bastian said. Remember when the kid ate the raw turtle egg? That was nasty. We have time for one more, Karen asked. Sean? Sean shook his head. Okay, Sky? Nobody in the class really knew Sky. He'd arrived at the school in January, and he still hadn't made any close friends. Rachel often saw him at recess, standing alone on the playground or sitting by himself. He hardly ever talked in class, and he had never once read aloud any of his writing. Now Sky looked down at his paper and shrugged. With a soft voice, he started to read. I was thinking about when Mr. Frab told us on Monday about that time he was rushing his pregnant sister to the hospital. He knew he was doing something he'd never forget, and he said to himself, I'm inside a story. That reminded me of the time I was surfing in California. This monster swell came, and I caught it perfectly. For a few seconds, I was inside the wave. It was my first time ever, and it didn't last very long, but I'll remember every detail of that ride till the day I die. The board under my toes, the water a half-foot thick all around me, the blue-green light coming through the water, the hissing sound of the wave, so much spray flying in my face I could barely see, my ears popping from the change of air pressure. It was an awesome rush, like nothing else in the world. I felt happy and scared, and the whole time I kept on saying to myself, hey, I'm in it. I'm inside the curl. Sky looked up. That's it, he said. Cool, Jordan said. Other kids nodded. Yeah, Bastian admitted. Pretty good. That was great, Sky, Vicky said softly. The bell rang. Lunch. 12:30. Lunch. Hey, we better go, Vicky said. Yeah, but the whole 6th grade will be in the cafeteria, Tim pointed out. How are we going to keep the teachers from finding out? They'll find out, Jessica predicted. People will talk. Yeah, you, for instance, Bastian muttered. Everybody, for instance, Jessica retorted. You think Robert and Corey aren't going to tell Josh? The kids all looked up at Robert and Corey. The two triplets sat with their brother Josh every day at lunch. We're innocent, Robert said, throwing up his arms. Yeah, Corey said, we didn't do it. We demand to see a lawyer. Listen, guys, Karen said, we're only trying to do this for one day, right? 6 hours, and we're close. It'd be a shame to get caught now. I say we keep it a class secret, Jasmine said. I'm not telling anybody, not even if they torture me. It won't work, Sky said quietly. A story like this is contagious. Bastian flinched at the word contagious. Quarantine. He's right, Karen said. Morgan already knows. You really think he can keep quiet about this? No way. And other kids will find out too. I say we tell the other 6th graders after we swear them to secrecy. We've got to make them swear they won't tell any teachers until school is over. It's Worth a try, Jasmine said. 3 o'clock? That's all we're asking. It's less than 3 hours away. Fact, Christopher said. Never work, Tim said. There are about a gazillion teachers' pets in the 6th grade. Maybe more. Rachel started scribbling a note. Wait a sec, Missy said. Rachel's got something. Ah, Bastian muttered. The silent pilot speaks again. This is your last day, Rhonda told him. Just pretend for one day that you're a nice person. My dog thinks I'm nice, Bastian thought. He smirked at Rhonda. Missy took the paper from Rachel and read aloud. Maybe the other 6th graders won't tell any teachers if we make them feel included, if they feel like they were part of it. Part of it how? Jasmine asked. By keeping the secret, Jessica said, nodding at Rachel. Then it's like they're sort of getting away with it too. It's our only hope. Our only hope? Jasmine smiled at her. Sounds like you're with us after all. Not really, Jessica said, folding her arms. In the cafeteria, Rachel sat with Missy and Rhonda. Miranda Lundstorm, a girl from Mrs. Friedman's class, sat with them. Tell me, Miranda begged. Tell me. Swear you won't tell anybody till after school, Missy said. I swear, she said. Geez, Missy, what's the big deal? This is really serious, Missy said in a hushed voice. She ripped the wax paper off of her sandwich as if she was unwrapping a fabulous gift. This is highly confidential, as in top secret. All right already, Miranda said in an exasperated voice. I swear on a stack of pictures of Rob Nelson. That's better, Missy smiled. Rob Nelson was the cutest boy in the 6th grade. She leaned forward and whispered, Mr. Fab's out today. Yeah, Miranda said. You mean out like absent? Gee, that is exciting. We've got no teacher. Who's your sub? That's the thing, Missy whispered. We don't have one. We're running our own class today. Miranda gave Missy an incredulous look, then glanced over at Rachel. Rachel nodded. What? Miranda hissed. She smacked her forehead. Remember, Missy, you promised. Who? What? I mean, Miranda sputtered. How did you get away with that? It started off as a normal day, Missy began. From the other side of the room, Rachel heard a snort of disbelief, a squeal of outraged delight that quickly got squelched. Looking around, Rachel could see dozens of kids in pairs, 3s and 4s, heads bent together, all talking intently. She closed her eyes, but even so she could feel the story spreading through the cafeteria, carried on thousands of whispered words, a fire burning up a dry forest, jumping from table to table, little flames she could feel licking at her insides. For the first time that day, she could feel the pressure of words in her chest, words that wanted to get out, but somehow could not come out. She chewed a bite of sandwich and swallowed it down. See you later.